The Where Our Minds Wander podcast may contain sensitive content and explicit language. Listener discretion is advised. Greetings, fellow wanderers, to the places our minds wander.
The house at the end of the dirt road, where disembodied voices whisper and strange sounds make the living shiver.
Where shadows lurk at the edge of the woods, just outside your back door. And mysterious lights speed beyond reason across the clear night sky.
Odd events throughout time that lead you down the rabbit hole.
I'm Wes.
And I'm Beth.
And this is Where Our Minds Wander. Hello and welcome to Where Our Minds Wander, all you fellow wanderers. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, everybody.
Well, it's been an interesting last 24 hours, hasn't it?
It has.
It feels weird to be recording during the day.
This is true.
And last night, we decided we were going to go out shopping because Beth wanted a Christmas village for this year's display. It was snowing out a little bit, but by the time we got out of the store, we had probably 3 to 4 inches on the ground of snow.
Yes.
And then it continued.
It did. It just kept snowing.
To almost 8 inches. And the funny thing is, we were only supposed to get under an inch.
That's what all the weather reports kept saying. We kept checking, and it just kept snowing.
They got that wrong, didn't they?
A little bit.
It's not unusual for them to get it wrong, but that was pretty far off.
7 inches off.
Nobody expected it. There were cars off the road and people stuck going up minor grades of a hill. I mean, it was pretty funny.
Yeah, it was a little wild.
Yeah. Well, I love extreme weather, so I was just enjoying myself.
I know you were you were in your element, driving around, trying all the different features on the car that we haven't tried yet.
Well, yeah, we went out and bought a new Subaru Crosstrek Wilderness, and I gotta say, it's awesome. We upgraded from our other Crosstrek, and this one really just plows through anything. It's been fun.
It was fun.
We got to try out some of our off-road lights that I put on it.
Well,
many lights.
Not really. I mean, we were in a parking lot with nobody else around. We didn't really try them out. You just turn them on and turn them off.
Well, that's kind of deflating.
Sorry, honey. I'm trying to keep it real today in the studio.
You're going to keep it real, huh? I still got to go outside and shovel and...
Well, we'll both do that, not just you.
I'm sure we will. We'll both be out there cleaning. Or you'll come out later after I'm done cleaning.
I perfected that when I was 12.
Yeah, you're pretty slow getting down those stairs when there's snow to be done. So, I know my story's pretty good tonight. What are you talking about?
I am talking about the Belasco Theater, the one in New York and the one in LA.
Interesting.
Yeah.
One in 2 major cities.
Yeah, different coasts.
This should be cool.
You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready to go.
Okay.
What about all our listeners?
I'm sure they're ready too. They're
all right. Sit back, get comfy, and Beth's going to get into it when she stops interrupting me.
The Belasco Theater is one of the oldest and longest-running theaters in New York City. From the outside, it looks like your typical theater from the early 1900s, with its brick facade and arched windows. But inside, well, it looks like a palace, or the inside of a grand cathedral. It's all rich, dark wood from one corner to the next, decorated with ornate murals, carved woodworking, and a ceiling that should be in St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. There's no way I could ever hope to describe this place and do it justice. It involves words like balustrade, porticos, and crenellations. I mean, It has floating theater boxes. So it's the kind of place that you have to Google and see for yourself. When you go to a show at the Belasco, you can almost feel the innate need to dress up in your high-collared Victorian gown or your tuxedo with tails and a top hat and a gold-handled walking stick. It's that fancy. According to NewYorkCurbed.com, David Belasco was a theater manager, dramatist, and director living in New York City at the turn of the century. He hired architect George Keister, who had previously designed hotels, to build a magnificent theater that looked like a temple. Belasco was a pioneer in the little theater movement, which was the belief that the audience and the performers should be as close to each other as possible, creating an intimate theater experience. Seeing a play should be like witnessing a performance in your very own living room. The theater opened in 1907, and it was named the Stuyvesant Theater after Peter Stuyvesant, the last Dutch general director of New Amsterdam, before New York became New York. Although it was meant to invoke feelings of intimacy between the actors and the audience, the theater was anything but ordinary. Belasco spared no expense. The walls were covered in 18 grand murals that mimicked Renaissance paintings, all done by American Ashcan School artist Everett Shinn. The lighting and ceiling panels were designed by Tiffany and installed by lighting specialists Nimis and Nimis. The color scheme was blue, green, and brown. In the winter, the theater was kept warm by an innovative system of 350 air ducts that continuously piped in heat from 2 basement boilers. When it got too warm, fresh air could be piped in from ceiling vents. The stage was set on a hydraulic system, and there was a special effects studio right in the basement. Some of Belasco's plays even incorporated scents that would be wafted through the theater by his innovative ventilation system in order to add authenticity to the scenes.
Oh my God, if this place isn't already grand enough, they have scents. That's unbelievable.
Well, it reminded me like when you go to Disney World or Disneyland and you go into one of the theaters for the one that I saw was Honey, I Shrunk the Kids or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's a 3D thing. And as I think it was mice, there was like thousands of mice running through and they blew air at the back of your ankles.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
So it reminded me of that. And it's like, that's not so innovative. Belasco was doing it in 1907.
Well, that's not scents either. I mean,
Right.
Can you imagine sitting there and you can smell like waffles wafting throughout the air?
Well, they do that too. That's what I'm saying is
They have the scents also.
Yeah, it's not new. Greatly concerned for his actors and his audience's safety, especially from fire, Belasco had 19 emergency exits installed, 10 of which led directly out of the building from the orchestra level. It was said that the entire theater could be evacuated in just 3 minutes. In addition to that, there was a 15,000-gallon water pump in the basement that could pump out 250 gallons per minute, and a 10,000-gallon reserve water tank installed on the roof. The first ever performance at the Belasco in 1907 was a play called A Grand Army Man, and with its success, Belasco found no reason to ever leave his theater. He built a 10-room duplex penthouse apartment into the theater in 1909. He lived there until his death in 1931.
That's incredible. You get to live above your theater.
I know. But what I find confusing is that he was married. And based on some of his extramarital relationships that he had in the penthouse, I don't think she lived there. I think the wife and the daughter lived somewhere else.
Oh.
I think. Because how else would he have gotten away with all of his alleged extramarital goings on?
I don't know.
I know.
That's pretty convenient. Especially if you're having some of the actresses up.
That's exactly what he did.
Go figure.
Yeah.
Not right.
In 1910, Belasco decided to change the name of his theater and rename it after himself. He had good reason since he was so incredibly successful. According to ClassicNewYorkHistory.com, his choices for what to stage in his theater always paid off. For example, in 1910, the concert ran for more than 200 performances, a feat he repeated the following year with the show Return of Peter Grimm. Of the 50 shows Belasco either directed or produced at his theater between 1907 and 1931, most of them ran for at least 100 performances each. By all accounts, David Belasco was a bit of a character. He was often called the Bishop of Broadway because he liked to wear a long cassock and clerical collar. He was born in San Francisco to Jewish parents who had emigrated to California during the gold rush. He got his first job in a theater, doing all kinds of things, like copying scripts and filling in when they needed extras. By 1873, he was working as a director of Piper's Opera House in Virginia City, Nevada, where he found, quote, more reckless women and desperados to the square foot than anywhere else in the world.
Smart. Because they're going to want to spend their money.
Yeah, absolutely. It was there, seeing people die in all kinds of strange ways, that made him think that stage performances needed to be more intimate, that the stage was the place to make people feel something. He moved to New York City in 1882 and worked as a stagehand for Madison Square Theater and then the Lyceum Theater, while he worked on writing his own plays in his free time. Over his career, he wrote, directed, or produced over 100 Broadway plays and helped establish the careers of people like Leslie Carter, Ina Clare, Maude Adams, and Barbara Stanwyck. Other established actors like Mary Pickford, Lionel Barrymore, and Lillian Gish couldn't wait to work with him. Famed filmmaker Cecil B. DeMille was mentored by Belasco.
That's pretty cool. Mary Pickford.
I know.
We saw a great documentary.
Yes.
On Mary Pickford.
Was it called Titans?
Yeah, I believe it was. It was about the making of, well, going from radio into silent movies, then into talking pictures.
And it was about all the film titans of early Hollywood.
Right.
Yeah, it was very good.
And how they came to be.
All in all, over 40 motion pictures are based on Belasco's plays. Belasco was married to the same woman, Cecilia Loveridge, for over 50 years. They had 2 daughters, Raina and Augusta. But there were rumors, as I'd mentioned earlier, that multiple actresses were invited up to Belasco's penthouse at the theater quite often. After his death in 1931, the rumors began that Belasco's spirit was still lingering at the theater. According to the HistoryReader.com and NewYorkGhosts.com, actors have seen Belasco's apparition all over the theater. They say that he's frequently seen on opening nights, seated in one of the box seats, as if he's passing judgment on the performance. There have been times when people have sworn that a shadowy figure in a cassock has even approached them after a performance and held out his hand as if he would like to congratulate them. But then he simply fades away.
That's so cool to have an experience like that.
That is cool. At other times, actors have experienced doors opening and shutting backstage with no plausible explanation, and the sound of phantom footsteps walking away. The New York Post even ran an article about a dog that was in the theater that would turn and growl as if someone was standing there every single day at exactly 4 p.m. But nobody could see anyone standing there. Workers have talked about hearing footsteps coming from Belasco's penthouse, as well as the faint sound of jazz music and dancing feet. A few times, they've even called the police to come and check for possible intruders. But the officers have found the penthouse door locked and absolutely no evidence that anyone had been inside. Even the time they swore they could hear Belasco's private elevator on the move, the police found nothing amiss after they arrived. Belasco's spirit has also been known to touch people, especially women, and typically on the derriere. A pat or a pinch are common reports. According to thehistoryreader.com, during a production of Dracula the Musical, the actress playing Mina Harker, a young woman named Melissa Errico, had several sightings of Belasco. She was quoted as saying, "My dresser, Kathy, saw him walk into the mirror the other day. She thinks he lives in the mirror in the wall outside my dressing room. One night, I forgot my coat, and I had turned out the lights in my room. I turned back to get my coat, and in the dark, someone, David, turned the small pretty table light on for me to see my way. It was spooky." End quote. Allegedly, the only time Belasco's spirit didn't show himself was for the entire decade when the actors on stage did show themselves. For the entire 10-year run of a nude performance of O Calcutta, Belasco's ghost didn't appear at all.
That's kind of strange.
It's funny. He didn't like nude people on his stage.
Yeah, that's rather odd, isn't it? You think that he would have a front row seat for that. But perhaps he's more the visual type of person that would prefer to undress them with his eyes.
Upstairs in his penthouse apartment.
Yeah.
But Belasco's ghost isn't the only spirit in the theater. There's also the Blue Lady. The legend surrounding the Blue Lady is that she was a showgirl at the theater and perhaps also one of Belasco's mistresses. It depends on which legend you hear, but at some point she fell to her death in the elevator shaft. Another version is that she was a call girl when the Belasco was converted into the Follies Gentlemen's Club. But this is a conflagration of 3 different Belasco theaters, the one in New York City and 2 in L.A. The Belasco Theater in New York City has always been a theater. Now, you would think a story as sensational as a woman falling down an elevator shaft would have made all of the newspapers. But as far as I can tell, it never really happened. But the Blue Lady is definitely there. In general, she has blonde hair and she wears a blue dress. She's seen during final dress rehearsals, often sitting in one of the box seats overlooking the stage, just like Belasco's ghost does on opening nights. But she's also considered responsible for one of the elevators consistently arriving to floors unsummoned. The funny thing is, the doors leading to the box seats are kept locked except during performances. So there isn't any way for the Blue Lady to get inside them, unless she passes right through the locked door. Actress Laura Linney of movies like The Truman Show and TV shows like Ozark claimed to have seen the Lady in Blue herself. Linney was on the Late Late Show with James Corden when she spoke about it. Linney was on stage during her final dress rehearsal with fellow actress Jane Alexander. She told Corden that as she turned to look at Jane, she glanced up at the balcony and saw this blonde woman in a blue dress standing there. She thought to herself, "Well, hello." Linney looked back at Jane and then back up at the balcony, but the woman was gone.
What an incredible place to have a experience like that.
I know. You're on stage and you're delivering your lines and you've got this thing that you have to do and you look up and you see a ghost.
I know. And as beautiful as this place is, I mean, what the perfect, setting or stage to see something like this. Can you imagine standing in there with the ornateness? I mean, it's jaw-dropping, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you look at our little theater here, the Strand, which I grew up, as a kid going to, and it had the floating balcony.
Mm-hmm.
It was just an incredible experience. And this place is like 1,000 times
fancier.
Yes.
After the rehearsal, Linney mentioned her sighting to the house manager, who confirmed that the box seats were inaccessible. And when Linney said that she thought she may have seen a ghost, the manager asked her if it was male or female. When she said female, he responded, "Blonde hair, blue dress." Now, as I had mentioned just a few seconds ago, the story of the Blue Lady is sometimes confused with the Belasco Theater in Los Angeles, which is just as interesting and allegedly just as haunted. But just to make it a little confusing, there's actually 2 more Belasco theaters, and they were both in LA. The first one was owned by the Belasco Stock Company and was on Main Street in downtown LA. It was run by David Belasco's brother, Frederick. This theater, which opened in 1904, is the one that eventually became the Follies Gentlemen Club in 1919. It was used primarily for burlesque shows up through the 1940s. Then it fell into disrepair and was demolished in 1974. But in 1926, oil pioneer Edward Doheny was concerned about LA's entertainment scene. So he fronted the money for 2 new theaters to be built. One, the Mayan, would be strictly for comedies and musicals, but the other, the Belasco, would be for legitimate theater. He named it the Belasco after David Belasco. David's other brother, Edward, was hired to manage it. So the 3 Belasco brothers each managed a Belasco theater.
Well, that's pretty nice because he kept it within the family to run it.
Yeah. It opened on November 1st, 1926, with a production of Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. The theater did pretty well. even surviving the Great Depression by participating in the Federal Theater Project. But in 1948, the Doheny family sold the building to Belco Properties, which wanted to use it for burlesque shows and films. It closed as a movie theater in 1950. Next, it reopened as the Emmanuel Gospel Church in the 1970s. They stayed until 1987. Then in 2011, it was reinvented again as an events venue for musical performances. Live Nation took over operations in 2020. But I found a rather bizarre story about the LA Belasco. According to GulaBlogspot.com, that while the building was used as a church, various members of the congregation claimed to hear phantom footsteps walking across the stage. Or they'd hear rustling sounds backstage that they couldn't explain. Well, one explanation was that it wasn't a ghost, but a very much alive elderly lady who had been secretly living in the old green room under the stage. Except no one seemed to know who she was or why she was living there. In fact, I couldn't find anything concrete about her online other than she just seemed to disappear one day and no one ever saw her or heard her again. If it's true, it's bizarre, like I said, and I feel like there's got to be more to the story, but I couldn't find anything. So I'm assuming she was without a home, and the church continued to let her live there because they felt it was the right thing to do. But I'm just speculating.
Or perhaps she was a ghost.
Or she could have been a ghost. As for the Belasco Theater in New York City, they are currently staging the Tony Award-winning musical Maybe Happy Ending, starring Darren Criss, through summer 2026.
Maybe Happy Ending?
Yes. It's about it's about AI robots.
Oh, really?
That
give happy endings?
No.
Maybe?
Don't turn it into something gross.
I didn't?
If you're into musicals and want to see it in a beautiful haunted theater, then you all know where to go now to see it.
Yeah, and maybe you'll get a happy ending.
Oh, geez.
Maybe. And we'll be right back after this short break.
Hey, did you know? Just 1 month after actress Dorothy Gibson survived the Titanic disaster, she starred in a film about the Titanic disaster that she wrote herself. The 10-minute film, which was actually well received by the public, hasn't been seen in 101 years, since the only copy and negatives of the film were lost in a fire in 1914. Who'd have thunk it?
All right, all you fellow wanderers, we are back from the break. And for my story tonight, I'm going to be telling you all about the Biltmore Estate. When George Vanderbilt visited Asheville, North Carolina in 1888, he couldn't get over how beautiful it was. George was only 25 years old, but he had a vision for his land. He would build a country estate for himself, but not just any estate. His would be a self-sustaining village. And since he was the grandson of shipping magnate Cornelius Vanderbilt, George could afford to buy up land bit by bit until he owned 125,000 acres of it. But first, he had to convince the Shiloh community, a community of freed Black Americans who already lived there, to move. To be fair, George Vanderbilt is believed to have paid every black family in Shiloh at least double what their land was worth. And he also paid to literally move everything, including their homes, their church, and even the bodies interred in their cemetery, to another spot just a mile away. Then, work on the house could begin. Vanderbilt hired several of the black men from New Shiloh to do as much work as possible. And when his village was finally complete, he would employ many of New Shiloh's residents. And when many of those original workers passed away, he continued to pay their widows men's salaries. In one case, he paid it for 33 years. But back to the house. The house they were building would be a simple French Renaissance-style chateau. Nothing too large, just 250 rooms with 135,000 square feet of living space. There were 35 bedrooms and 43 bathrooms. His small chateau covered an entire 4 acres. So, a little tiny house. Nothing too big.
Just a little tiny summer cottage.
He named it Biltmore, and even though it had been under construction for 6 years, it wasn't finished when George hosted Christmas for his friends and family in 1895. The completed house was incredible. The exterior contained over 11 million bricks, and the stone spiral staircase inside has 102 steps, reaching 4 floors high. A chandelier holding 72 electric bulbs hangs from the center. George loved art and literature, and throughout his travels, he was always coming home with cool stuff. Renoir paintings, Chippendale furniture, 50 Persian and Oriental carpets, Ming Dynasty goldfish bowls made of porcelain, Napoleon's chess set, that sort of stuff. The little stuff that you find at your everyday antique store.
Right.
Sounds like he had a pretty good eye for stuff. According to romanticasheville.com, he wanted his guests to feel welcomed and as if they were in the lap of luxury and relaxation. So he made sure tea was served daily and that the gaming parlors were always ready. The indoor swimming pool and bowling alley were popular ways for guests to pass their time. Maids lived on the 4th floor, and kitchen servants worked in one of the 4 kitchens inside the house. The house was fully electrified with Thomas Edison's earliest light bulbs, and there was central heating throughout the entire house. He also had something else quite new, a telephone. George was a very smart man. He was well-read, he knew his art, and he also had a solid understanding of agriculture and horticulture. He was educated in architecture and music also. So, the fact that he was still a bachelor was pretty well known. Whoever he married would have to be his intellectual equal. In 1898, he proposed to Edith Stuyvesant Dresser, who was his total equal, despite being 10 years younger than him. She came from a slightly different background. She was raised by her grandparents after her parents passed away when she was just 10 years old, but her grandparents allowed her to travel all over the world and to live in Paris for a number of years. According to the Biltmore Estate official website, she met George Vanderbilt at Queen Victoria's Jubilee in 1897. Edith was well educated, just like George, but she was also kind and compassionate, 2 qualities that he greatly admired. After they were married, Edith moved into the Biltmore Estate, where she founded several schools. The Biltmore School of Domestic Science for young black women, and the Biltmore Dairy Moonlight School for teaching the adults employed on the estate how to read. George and Edith's only child, a daughter named Cornelia, was born in 1900. The Spartanburg Journal printed her birth announcement saying, quote, "A new star has appeared at the famous Biltmore, and the charming mistress of the most gorgeous home is smiling upon her firstborn, a tiny girl called Cornelia Stuyvesant Vanderbilt, and the world shares in her newfound happiness." End quote. After George's death during an emergency appendectomy in 1914, Edith Vanderbilt volunteered at the Red Cross and continued her late husband's quest to establish the Pisgah National Forest. She was elected the first female president of the North Carolina Agricultural Society, and when she married for a second time to Senator Peter Gerry of Rhode Island, she made sure that Biltmore Village still ran smoothly. The village, that self-sustaining one that George envisioned for years earlier, had finally become a reality. The Biltmore Village had the first railroad station in all of Asheville. It also had its own post office, its own stores, and its own church. According to the Smokies.com, one of the few sensationalized tragedies to occur at the estate was in 1922. One of the security guards, a man named Walter Brooks, confronted 5 young men at the gate. Other sites described them as boys, so although I don't know for sure, I'm assuming that they were young teenagers. But the young men basically told Brooks that they planned on storming the house and taking control of it. Brooks fired at them, killing 2 and wounding a 3rd. During the trial, it came out that one of the 5 young men was upset with Brooks because he had allegedly killed his dog for chasing after a deer on the property. Brooks was found guilty of second-degree murder and sentenced to 40 years of hard labor. In 1924, Cornelia married the Honorable John Francis Amherst Cecil at All Souls Church in Biltmore Village. Cecil was a descendant of Lord Burghley, who had been Queen Elizabeth I's treasurer. Cornelia and John had 2 boys, George Henry Vanderbilt Cecil and William Amherst Vanderbilt Cecil. A descendant of the Cecil boys still owns and operates the Biltmore Estate today. Today, the Biltmore Estate is a historical landmark. First, it's the largest individually owned home in the entire country. But it's also open to the public for all kinds of tours and events. Biltmore Village was hard hit by Tropical Storm Helene, and they were hoping to rebuild and reopen by 2026. Just the history of George and Edith Vanderbilt and the Biltmore Estate could fill multiple episodes. If you're into history, I would highly recommend looking into the place yourself. But something that Biltmore is known for is its hauntings. Now, I guess one could make the case that it makes sense that there still might be the shadows of servants going about their daily task, since the Biltmore mansion relied on hundreds of servants to keep the place running all day and all night, 365 days a year. The mansion's main staircase seems to be a hot spot, according to HauntedUS.com. First, people have reported hearing the sounds of footsteps, frequently going up and down the stairs. Sometimes those footsteps coincide with shadowy figures that seem to travel up and down the staircase. There have also been reports of odd smells traveling along the stairs that no one can explain. It's also common for people to remark that they just passed through a terrible cold spot on the stairs as they climbed up or down. Although no one is really sure who these shadowy figures may have been in life, it's as if they continue to travel the same routes they used to travel often in their daily lives. So perhaps they are the shadows of maids or servants. And speaking of servants and shadowy figures, there have been just as many reports of shadow figures passing through the former servants' quarters in the basement, as well as in the basement kitchens. Another hot spot, according to the Smokies.com, is the indoor swimming pool in the basement. The entire room is covered from floor to curved ceiling in white tile. The pool itself hasn't been filled with water in a very long time, and spaced evenly down one side are single loops of rope that at first glance look like tiny nooses. there's a fragile-looking wooden ladder leading up out of the deep end. That's pretty creepy.
It is creepy. The pictures of it that you showed me were a little unnerving. They do look like little nooses hanging off the side into the pool.
Yeah. It would make you want to run out of that room pretty quickly.
I'm assuming they were there because when people were swimming, they could grab onto them and maybe pull themselves out of the pool. I don't know.
Perhaps so. In every article I read about the Biltmore, it mentions the eeriness of the pool. Some authors suggest that it's just unnerving to see a 70,000-gallon pool empty of water, and it's natural to feel kind of uneasy in the room. Others add the apparent supernatural stuff that occurs in the room, and it becomes even creepier. Like the splashing people have heard sometimes, like they've just walked in on someone swimming, or the faint sounds of laughter that people have followed right to the pool drain. The laughter seems to be coming from inside the drain itself. Yup, no way.
That's weird.
Mm-mm.
Is there any way that it could somehow be coming from outside or something? And it's...
Perhaps underneath the pool, where you have a space to work on the drainage and everything? Perhaps if someone was under there talking? Perhaps it could carry, I would imagine. But who would be down there talking?
And laughing.
Yeah. Nope. No way. But the strangest of all is the lady in black. No one really knows who she might be, but the apparition of a lady in black has been seen in the pool area. Legend has it that she is searching for her child who drowned in the pool 100 years ago, but there aren't any documented cases of that happening at the Biltmore. Although the Biltmore Estate doesn't shy away from their haunted reputation, they do draw a line at the Lady in Black stories, saying that there was never any child who drowned in the pool. So, although she is seen, they would prefer that people stop perpetuating the legend that her child drowned there.
That's fair enough.
That is, I like that. I mean, it sounds like they can get enough people drawn in just on what there is for hauntings that they don't have to perpetuate some,
made up story.
Right.
Yeah.
I like that about these people because they could cash in just on that to draw people in. Besides the lady in black, there's also the lady in the pink dress. According to ghostpoppy.com, visitors to the mansion have commented on the lovely lady that they've seen sitting alone in some of the rooms, or even walking down the halls. They always describe her the same way, as wearing a pink dress. Now, there's some speculation that the lady in the pink dress is the spirit of George Vanderbilt's mistress, who died in 1898, the same year he proposed to Edith.
Oh.
So he had a mistress, supposedly, and a future wife.
Sounds like maybe a jilted lover kind of story.
You never know. Night watchmen and evening employees have reported hearing the sounds of a party going on at the mansion that they have no knowledge of. They've heard the sounds of clinking glasses, low chatter like a lot of people having conversations all at the same time, and laughter. But when they go to investigate the room or area they could have sworn that they heard the party taking place in, it's completely empty. Outside the mansion on the grounds, there are two resident spirits. One is the ghost of a little boy who has been seen playing in the gardens. Some visitors have reported hearing him laughing as he plays. Like many other ghosts at the mansion, no one is really sure who he might have been, although it's assumed that he was the child of one of the workers. Now, a building that I do want to mention that is on the Biltmore Estate property is the former Biltmore Forestry School, which later became the Forestry Compound. According to reports, the building is as haunted as the main house, due to a couple reasons. First, people were allegedly hanged inside the building. But once again, I couldn't find anything saying when or why this might have happened. There are also some mentions of a sex worker being murdered in or nearby the building. But yet again, I couldn't find anything substantial to back those claims up. But I figured that I would mention it, since the building is often mentioned as part of the hauntings.
And I'm assuming she's one of the two spirits that haunts outside, the little boy and her.
Yes.
Okay.
But the two most frequently seen apparitions inside the mansion are the ones that make the most sense, George and Edith Vanderbilt. Their stories are kind of sad, though. The library at the Biltmore is incredible. It's 2 stories tall and holds over 10,000 books, all from George's personal collection. By the age of 12, George was writing down the titles of every book he read in his journal, a practice which he continued for the rest of his life. For example, in the year 1899, he read 31 novels and 20 nonfiction books. When he died, he owned over 23,000 books. And he had every single one recovered in Moroccan leather and embossed in gilt lettering.
And you think I have a lot of books?
Well, I think you have a lot of books, but nothing like this.
No, and I don't pay to have all of my books recovered to look the same.
Well, when you had that kind of money and you love books this much, why not?
Well, yeah, he was trying to make sure that they would last forever.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's no surprise that the library was one of George's favorite rooms in the entire mansion. People have claimed to have walked into the library to see George sitting in his favorite chair, reading. At times, employees have walked in on what sounded like a conversation between husband and wife, only to find the room empty. But it's only George's apparition that people have seen, not Edith's. However, people have claimed to have heard her voice calling his name, as if she's still trying to pull her husband away from the pages of a book, or she's searching the entire house for him and calls into the library hoping to finally find him there. Now, it would be sad if the ghosts of both George and Edith are there, but they can't find each other, which I find rather fascinating, because we have heard of this many times before. People who have passed on and said to be in the same house that don't seem to know each other is there.
Yeah, we have heard of that, and it is sad.
It is. And it's been theorized that it could be due to vibrational differences, which means that the spirits have different vibrational frequencies, and only those on a similar frequency can perceive each other. So I guess that could explain what might be happening. Yeah. And we've heard of this quite a few times before. For instance, say, you're off to sea. Your wife's at home waiting for you to come back. It's been a long time. She hasn't heard anything. And she decides that she can't take it anymore. You get back to your house only to find out that your wife has passed away. And then you continue to live your life until you pass away. And then you both seem to haunt the house, not knowing that the other one is still in the house haunting it, waiting for you to come back. You see what I'm saying?
Yes. I remember there was one other story we did. I can't remember where it was, though, but it was a mother and daughter who were both in the same house and didn't seem to understand that the other's spirit was there, too, which it is sad.
Yeah, I've heard of quite a few stories like this. Well, I'd say a handful, but I can't remember them off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm. That would suck, though, if in life you were like on the same wavelength as your partner, like you thought alike, or you anticipated each other's sentences and, that type of thing.
Right.
And then you die and you're on different frequencies.
But you're in the same
But you're in the same
place.
house.
Yeah, that would be kind of sad.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, you wouldn't really know because, well...
That's true. You wouldn't know.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, that would be worse, I think.
Yeah.
If you knew they were there, but you couldn't reach them. That would be worse than not knowing that they're there.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, I'd like to go there someday. It seems like a pretty amazing place to visit.
Both places do.
Yeah.
The theaters and the Biltmore.
It's probably more likely that we would get to the Belasco in New York City than we would to North Carolina. But, you never know.
Yeah, one never knows where our travels will take us.
This is true.
Well, that's about it for this episode.
Okay, so if you would like to know more about the Belasco Theaters or about the Biltmore Estate, you can always check our sources in our show notes. And you can find out more information. Definitely about the Vanderbilts. I mean, that's a rabbit hole that I think everybody should go down at least a little bit.
Yeah, and perhaps in your research also, maybe you can find something more about these people that passed away on the estate that I couldn't seem to find any answers for. But, a lot of things from back then, it's not recorded or the records were lost. So, and the internet, well, you're not always going to find everything there.
This is true.
You really have to go to the place and do a deep delve into the historical records.
Yes.
But if you live there in Nashville, that's something you could definitely do. And then report back to us because we'd like to know.
We're sending you on an assignment, whether you want it or not.
That's what we could do. We could send our wanderers on assignments.
Ooh, we could have paranormal homework.
Yes. Well, we'll think about that next episode. Join us again next week for an all-new episode of Where Our Minds Wander.
See you soon. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to traveling with you again to the places where our minds wander.
If you like what you heard, please take a moment and provide us with a 5-star rating and a comment on your favorite listening platform. It really helps us move up the list and become more visible on the podcast charts so new people can find us.
And thank you all for your continued support.
See you next week for an all-new episode.